Once again, from the studios of UNO Television on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, consider this, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
How does your town or city look and feel? Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, community design. Joining us to talk more about it are Connie Spellman, Director of Omaha by Design, and Todd Swarzak, City Planner for Omaha. Thanks to the two of you for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
All right, Connie, we're going to open this thing up with you answering that question of when people ask about Nebraska, what do you tell them?
Well, I guess I'd like to tell them it's not what you see as you're driving through I-80 and seeing a flat land. But I don't. I've been very fortunate that I've grown up in Nebraska, a small town outside of Lincoln. Wahoo is where I grew up, and Omaha is where I raised my family. But I also have family and connections in other parts of the state that's given me a different perspective on Nebraska that makes it clearer. We have a cottage up on the Missouri River near Niobrara, Nebraska. We have a family ranch in Imperial, Nebraska. And so I know what Omaha really is and what it looks like, and its incredible natural topography and the beauty of the state in the natural setting and the friendliness of the people and the sense of pride that people have about Nebraska and their family values and their sense of we can do it, we can get it done. And so that's the way I describe Nebraska, as being that state that is full of quality of life for all residents.
And Todd, full of urban and rural. We hear those terms quite a bit. Let's start off by having you define rural.
Well, there are a couple of definitions of rural, but the most widely accepted comes from the Census Bureau and the Office of Management and Budget, along with the Farm Bill. And essentially they would define rural and urban as being 50,000 person threshold. So if 50,000 people live in a contiguous area, then that would make it an urban area. So you can have a city like Papillion that might have about 15 to 20,000 people, and that would be considered urban because it's contiguous with Bellevue and Omaha, so the overall area is over 50,000 people. A city like Kearney that is bigger than Papillion, but it only has 31,000, is not surrounded by other municipalities, and so therefore that would be considered rural. So about 50,000 is the threshold. So below that you're considered to be rural, above that you're considered to be an urban environment.
And Connie, why is that so important to know, especially from a community design standpoint?
Well, I think it really boils down to just the matter of scale. If you're talking about a more rural community, they may have a one street, main street, and so the scale of which they're operating is less. When you're talking about an urban environment, you will have multiple main streets or commercial districts or housing areas that would require just a larger degree of design in order to fulfill that mission. But I think they're basically the same as far as how you administer them. It's just a matter of scale.
Wow.
And I would also like to add that while some of the larger urban areas, Lincoln and Omaha, have these multiple main streets that the rural communities have through them, there might be also different context where urban design applies within those cities, because both Omaha and Lincoln and some of the larger rural areas like Kearney and Grand Island also have suburban development that would require maybe different types of urban design guidelines. When you're talking about very small towns, like Connie had mentioned earlier, you generally just have that one main street.
Interesting. So much so, I'd like to know how you became involved in this realm, Todd. I mean, what drew you to this field?
I think that I'd always had an appreciation for architecture and for buildings, and I was always fascinated about how the organization of the city worked, how the streets interacted with the buildings, with the landscaping. And many years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I was told by a friend that I should probably look into the field of urban planning. And so once I started to talk to people who were involved in that field, it became clear to me that that was kind of what I had always wanted to do, and I guess I didn't realize up till then that it could be an actual paid job.
Wow. So the thing that motivates you every morning when you get up to go into work is what?
I try every day when I go into the office, I try to think, how can the development that we're seeing benefit Omaha? How can it benefit the citizens of Omaha? How can it benefit our tax base in Omaha? And is the development that we're seeing good development? And if it is not, then what do we need to change to make that happen? And if it is, how can we encourage more of that?
You could call what he's talking about, Connie, Omaha by Design,
Precisely.
which is, of course, your
Precisely.
organization. Tell us a little bit about Omaha by Design.
Well, we do partner a lot with the city. Our organization it really partners with public, private, and philanthropic, and we worked with the planning department to create, actually what's the basis of our mission, to create the urban design plan for the city of Omaha as well as the environmental element. And so our organization is dedicated to making sure that what the community helped to create is also then implemented and monitored, and make sure that we are moving in the direction the community designed. So it's a nonprofit organization, and we're entering our 14th year.
Congratulations.
And it's been great because we get to work on wonderful projects like this with wonderful young people like Todd.
So Connie, what is your skill set then? And then your draw into this field. This is not something just anybody can do, right? You have to have vision. You have to have so much. So for you, what were the strengths that really brought you into it and kept you here, right?
How much time do we have?
Well,
no. No. Well, I didn't know anything about planning or urban design. My background was in education. I spent 20 years at the Chamber doing leadership development and education and workforce recruitment. Mm-hmm. And then I retired, and then they came up with this idea that we needed to try to make our city more lively, more livable, and so I've been at this for 13 years, and my skill sets are I just learned from a lot of people who have passion about wanting our community to be better, and a place for all families to live, work, and play, and to be safe, and to have options for housing and for options for where they choose to live, whether it be in the suburban area, that all are equally enforcing their family values and making our community better.
Unbelievable. Todd, there's so many elements here, right? Where do you even know to start in something like this, right? Especially, I guess, regardless of the size of the town, there has to be a starting point.
Yeah.
And what is that generally?
Generally, the starting point, and I think Connie would agree with this, is somebody sees a project happen and they say, how did this happen? This is not a reflection of our community values. This development does not make me feel proud to live where I live. And when that happens, then a community then organizes and decides, well, what is that threshold that's acceptable in our community? What do I want to see every time I walk down the street, when I drive down the street? What do I want my kids to grow up in? So the impetus for all of this was that threshold was reached in Omaha, that people didn't want to see the kind of development that had been occurring for the prior 30 or 40 years. And from that, there were, Connie can talk about this, but there were years worth of meetings, hundreds of people involved in this process, and from that came our codes that we administer development with today in the city of Omaha. And I think that story can be replicated at any size of municipality, whether that's a 500-person rural town who wants to attract more visitors or wants to clean up some of the storefronts that are vacant along their street, to the largest cities in our state like Lincoln and Omaha. You know, the same recipe can happen. You know, the community decides we won't accept this anymore. We set a threshold of what we will accept, and then we make those that threshold regulations.
Connie.
I'd like to just give an example of that, and it was why Omaha by Design got into the arena of planning and community development. It was when the Walmart came into Omaha in 2002, and they were asked why they were building this big box that had one stripe around it, and they said because we build to urban design standards and politics, and you don't have the urban design standards. And many communities had Walmarts that were fit the context of their community. So that was when we decided that we needed to look at Omaha needs urban design standards, and that was in 2002, and they were adopted in 2005 ultimately when we got it all done. So there was that catalyst, that impetus for change, and then that has changed, and now I must tell you, I think Walmart is really a great asset to our community. They really comply with the standards, and they're going into parts of the city where it really is needed. The newest one is on Ames Avenue, and it's really a boost because they bring additional economic development with them. So it's a wonderful story in that what started out as perhaps a problem has really become a wonderful asset for the community development.
Well, yeah.
And over time, and it doesn't take that long, I would say it took probably a couple of years in Omaha, when design firms and developers have accepted that this becomes the regulatory climate, then it becomes very easy for especially national companies to come in and design projects to this higher level of urban design. I call it drawer B. You know, oh, well, you don't take drawer A, well, we'll go to drawer B. So many communities around the United States have these levels of design that are higher than the basic minimums. And I think that everyone, now that the design guidelines have been in place for 5 to 7 years, has a very good understanding of what we expect from them. And I think that the overall result of this is a much more beautiful city in where new projects have come in, and I think everyone would agree with that.
Okay, well, let's talk about results a little bit. What we're going to do here is we're going to be putting up a map of the state, and we're going to be identifying certain cities, towns, villages, and we'll put up photographs as we go along. And we'd just like for you to think out loud as we're looking at this. We want to start right here in Omaha with the Benson neighborhood. We'll show kind of a before shot here, and so go ahead and take it away.
Okay, this is a project that Omaha by Design has worked on for a number of years. It was a result of the urban design master plan of trying to get areas of Omaha working together, and so we decided that we would help the Benson Ames area. And Benson is about 130 years old. It has been very viable in the past, and when we started in 2005, there was a need for some new energy to come into the area. And so we really brought together all of the neighborhood association, the business association, the BID, all the people that are living and playing and enjoying and working there, and did several different master planning processes. We helped to create a TIF district that would make development easier. We helped to create a marketing plan for them. We supported the change in the Benson business district that allowed them to get more of their own businesses to support the development of the community. And this image that's on the screen was just implemented, and we had a grand opening this early spring. It doesn't look exactly like that, but it's a new gateway into the Benson corridor that has really helped. And we now are no longer working in the Benson area because the capacity building, they are on their own. It has taken off. It is now a music, arts, culture scene that is just phenomenal by helping people understand that they can make a difference in their own areas. And we've moved over to the Ames corridor to help do the same thing there.
It may seem an obvious question, Connie, but how important is it for that community to rally behind what's going on? It's one thing to say we'd like to see some change, but then really crossing the bridge to get people to find a place, I suppose, where they'll agree and then rally for that change, right?
Well, it's very doable. It just takes patience and time and resources and getting people to work together. And that's what makes the difference. They have to realize that, one, there is a need for change, and two, how do they do it? In a strong relationship with the city planning and public works and parks to see what it is that they can do. And it starts with the vision. They have to have a plan of what it could be. They have lived so long with what it was that you don't realize that it can be something different. They have to have the same aha moment that we had with Walmart. So it's one of those things. And then just you want to just step back and let them do their work, because they're the ones that know what they want. They know how much they want to do with their facade changes, or how they want their streetscape to look, or if they're going to be like Benson wanted to be sustainable. Everything they wanted to do in a sustainable manner, and that's why we have rain gardens, and a lot of the lighting and the things that they've worked on are all meant to lead to a very sustainable future for them. Wow. So it's
yeah, that's good stuff. All right, Todd, we're going to go on to Springfield.
Sure.
So we'll ask you, once we put that picture up, to just kind of tell us what we're seeing and what you're thinking. So.
Well, Springfield, as we talked about earlier, the urban-rural 50,000 person threshold, Springfield only has about 2,000 people, but it's within 9 miles of downtown Papillion, which is a suburb of Omaha. So Springfield is kind of that gray area. I guess I would still describe Springfield as being fairly rural, in that it is separated a little bit from the Omaha metropolitan area. So what you're going to see in downtown Springfield is an attempt by the downtown businesses to kind of create a place, a sense of place, which is what Benson had done through Omaha by Design and through the members of their business district. And you'll see on the flagpole, or on the street poles here, the flags that they've put up. Some facade renovations have been done. You'll notice that the on-street parking, there's some plantings that are along the street, and then you'll actually notice the light poles themselves are all uniform and kind of a certain era of the turn of the century. So what they've done is beautified that downtown Main Street, and with the hopes of attracting new businesses. And from my understanding, it's worked quite well, and some new businesses have come into the area because I think the citizens now have fostered a sense of place there and a sense of pride in their downtown.
And one of the things I'm thinking as I'm looking at that picture is how important parking, you know, and just thinking about that as you go into a project like this. What does that look like, and how is that going to impact the big picture, right?
Right. Well, parking plays a huge part in all of these, whether that's a rural context or if you're in the urban areas of Omaha. And that's something that, as we're seeing in the last 15 years, 10 to 15 years, and really very recently, that the boom has happened where millennials, people under the age of 30, and baby boomers who are retiring kind of have the same wants and desires that we're seeing on national trends, and that's that they want more walkable neighborhoods. They want to be closer to shopping, to entertainment, to their jobs. Well, with that comes parking. So in order to avoid what has happened over time in Omaha and Lincoln and almost every city and rural town in the U.S., you don't want to have this pattern of a building and then a parking lot, a building, then a parking lot. So what we're trying to do now is look at how we're incorporating on-street parking into all of these projects, because you're right. People do need parking. Restaurants, businesses, offices, even residents need to be able to park there. It makes the area more vibrant, but you don't want to sacrifice that walkable vibrancy for parking lots. So we're kind of moving toward talking about consolidated parking, shared parking for certain areas, along with really utilizing the existing street infrastructure for on-street parking.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's go on to Cedar Rapids. We may as well just go back to the map here and let's show folks that spot.
Okay, Cedar Rapids, Nebraska is where my grandparents were from. My grandma was from there, and all of her siblings, the area around there, the farming community. Cedar Rapids is about 300 people, and as you can see, it has a very wide main street. There are a few businesses still operating there, but what I was really encouraged to find looking at Cedar Rapids recently was this town has a very robust website that will tell you in great detail about properties that they have for sale, opportunities to come to live and do business there. It's my understanding that there was a recent fire department building built there about 3 years ago. So you can see in this context that being about 310 people, that the resources maybe are not entirely there right now, where it seems that the community mindset is there, that they want to encourage business, that they want to attract people. You can see the difference between this and Springfield, Nebraska, where the light poles are of kind of the 60s, 70s, 80s era, and they don't really lend to that traditional main street. They certainly have ample parking for all of the businesses that exist on the street. There is a little bit of a lack of maybe landscaping, but I think that Cedar Rapids, from what I've been researching a little bit, is definitely interested in making their town as vibrant as possible, if their website is any indication from what is happening in the city. And I remember going there as a small child to visit my relatives, and you know, there were a lot of children there. They had a municipal pool, and like a lot of rural areas in Nebraska, I think with the current job situation, that has kind of people have kind of left over time, and the population base has gone down a little bit.
Todd's the kind of guy you want around when there are photographs, because we have to get across the state yet here, Todd. So let's just quickly walk through Primrose, which is just a hop skip. Let's take a look at those two photographs briefly.
Sure. Primrose is just a smaller example. I think it's about 65 people of Cedar Rapids. Same Main Street type situation, not a lot of reinvestment that has gone into it. You can see by the lighting, of course they have the on-street parking, but the sidewalk conditions and the landscaping. This is a abandoned school outside of Primrose that is an example of what can be done maybe in Nebraska, rural Nebraska, as things move forward, about repurposing these kinds of structures for possible housing units, indoor markets of some kind. There's a lot of good building stock out there in the rural parts of the state.
Okay. On to Broken Bow. Take a look at those shots.
Sure. So Broken Bow has about 3,600 people and about 85,000 head of cattle. The largest feedlot in the state of Nebraska. So the two pictures you'll see here, this and then the next picture, are basically examples of housing in these types of communities, and to attract younger people, to attract more people coming in, then the housing stock is probably going to need to be upgraded in a lot of these rural communities, and this is a good example of that.
Excellent. McCook.
So McCook, Nebraska actually has a Frank Lloyd Wright house that was built by, or designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Cool.
This is their main street, a very vibrant main street. You can see that the treescape and the streetscape is very good in McCook. They have very few vacancies along that main street for a town of about 8,000 people, on-street parking. And they, obviously, the community wants to make it even more vibrant place and attract more people to the area, and this is done through, similar to what Benson, the neighborhood district in Omaha, has done, through streetscape design, as a way to encourage businesses to move into the area, for more people to walk, to shop, to linger in the area.
Okay. And finally, we'll go to Sydney. We'll just end on Sydney and take a look at what we have there.
Sure. Sydney, Nebraska is a very interesting story. There's about 6,700 people who live in Sydney, and this shot is going to show you that the growth outside of the town of Sydney that's happening right now, it's kind of a success story of rural Nebraska in that they don't have enough housing for the amount of employees that are coming into Sydney. It's a lot of people commute into Sydney, and they have about $350 to $500 million of new residential development planned in Sydney, Nebraska. So this is a community that can really start tackling some issues of urban design because they are growing in population, and they can kind of determine what kind of the aesthetics of their community moving forward.
Wow. All right, so Connie, at the end of the day, what is probably most important? And thank you, by the way, Todd. That was a very nice trek across the state. What's important?
Off of I-80.
Yes, for people to really know about this topic. What do we want them to remember?
Well, I think what's important is that, you know, good quality urban design, community design is all about enhancing the quality of life for all people. And I think that that's probably the core of what this is about, because we know the economic development potential that it provides. We know that it's the retention and attraction. We know that it creates a more beautiful setting that helps us all feel better, and the health impacts of living in a community where you can recreate and walk are incredible. It's really been shown that this is something that's important for all of us to understand and be a part of.
So the first call I make if I want to initiate change is to where?
To the planning department.
Am I calling Todd? Todd has lots to share, I would think. Really, truly, am I calling the planning department or?
Yes, I think
Okay.
that you would be. I think that you would, on a project-by-project basis, that we are definitely open for people to come in and talk to us about what changes they see that need to happen to make Omaha a more positive place and the state of Nebraska a more positive place.
Outstanding. Thanks to the two of you for being here. This was actually really fun. It went
you.
very quickly.
Thank you for
we appreciate
having
you
us.
being here with
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.